When things calm down, the US reopened that border crossing. I'm going to get back to that story in a moment. First, let's go to British Parliament, where Theresa May is speaking.
On the conclusion of our negotiations.
Stephen Doughty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm genuinely sorry to say this to the Prime Minister, but there is a stark difference between stoic determination and sheer stubbornness and a failure to listen to this House or to the people.
Well, you've just been listening to Theresa May facing an uphill battle trying to convince British lawmakers to approve her Brexit plan. Certainly trying to make the case. They're saying there is no better deal available. Well, our Bianca Nobilo, our correspondent, is outside 10 Downing Street to discuss this. You've been listening to it as well. I just want to start first on the mood, because the Prime Minister is often described as resilient. She keeps going, but the opposition leader they're saying today that the Prime Minister ploughing on is not stoic. It's an act of national self-harm. How do you think she fared today?
Well, she is resilient, as you mentioned, Lynda, but the mood, to your point, is incredibly sour and febrile. I've been listening, and the line's been pretty good. For the last hour, I haven't heard one supportive question. So usually in Parliament, it works that you get a spectrum. There'll obviously be opposition questions that are critical of the Prime Minister, but then from her supporters, there'll be questions which give her an opportunity to say something positive. There have been none. So members of Parliament from her own party have underscored in the chamber today, as she's trying to sell her deal, this is her moment to do it. Her own party have said, Prime Minister, you do not have the numbers, so what is your plan B? That's not to mention the leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, who said that this is a botched, bad deal that's the worst of all worlds. Now, bear in mind, Lynda, that the government is so desperate to get the votes because they don't have enough, because they can't rely on the support of their own party, that they're thinking of appealing to the Labour Party and are having meetings with them tonight. To hear the leader of the Labour Party say that about her deal doesn't make her particularly confident that she'll be able to rely on their support. So it doesn't look like she has the numbers to be able to carry this deal through the House of Commons.
It certainly doesn't, as you pointed out. No member offering any sort of support. And as you mentioned, the opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, asking for a plan B. And he, of course, was not the only one. Do we know what even a plan B could entail?
There have been reports in the British press over the last few days, Lynda, of what a plan B might look like, and particularly members of the Prime Minister's own cabinet who supported Remain during the referendum and don't want to see a hard Brexit. They would prefer what's being called the Norway option, so remaining in the European Economic Area, being more closely aligned to the EU. Now, that would mean Britain wouldn't have the autonomy to go and strike free trade deals with other countries, but it would mitigate some of the economic damage in their eyes by keeping Britain closely aligned with European standards and regulations and giving Britain access to European markets. So that's what's being spoken about as a plan B from the Remain side. But as we both know, Lynda, the opposition to the Prime Minister's deal isn't just from the one side, it's also from the Brexiteers. Now, their plan B would be a no deal or a managed no deal to try and mitigate that cliff edge, but still be able to strike free trade deals with other countries and break away from the EU. That's a so-called Canada-style deal. So the way that Parliament's conceived of this from the very beginning is you have a sliding scale of options, if you like, between a close partnership like Norway, a very detached one like Canada, and the Prime Minister is going for a compromise deal which is right down the middle, but to nobody's pleasure, it seems.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like she has much support at all at this point in time. Bianca Nobilo, certainly an uphill battle for the Prime Minister there. We will speak to you again very soon. Thanks so much. With the United Nations right now holding an emergency meeting at the Security Council to discuss a tense standoff between Ukraine and Russia. On Sunday, the Ukrainian Navy was carrying out a scheduled transfer near Crimea when Russia responded aggressively, ramming their boats, seizing 3 vessels and detaining 24 Ukrainian sailors. Just moments ago, the Russian representative put the blame solely on Ukraine.
These illegal acts meant that the Russian customs vessels had to use force. Thanks to their restraint and their high professionalism, there was no victims caused. The 3 people who were injured were provided with necessary medical help, and there's no threat to their lives, and these are members of the Ukrainian crew. Responsibility for this incident is borne by those people who gave the crew the illegal command. The vessels are in Russian ports, and the criminal investigations have been started.
And we are yet to hear from the ambassador for Ukraine. We will continue to follow those developments throughout the day. For now, that is the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Coming up, World Sport with Don Riddell.